Have you ever stopped to think about, like, how many awesome ideas have popped up throughout history and then just kind of vanished? Like flashes of brilliance that never really took off. It's almost like a lost library of human creativity, just brimming with these what-ifs.
That's a really, really cool way to put it. And that's exactly the kind of territory we're going to be exploring in this deep dive. The stuff you send over, it's a real treasure trove of these kind of forgotten inventions, spanning from, well, ancient times all the way to the digital age. A whole lot of unrealized potential there.
Totally. Think of this like, I don't know, our time machine adventure where we're going to be digging up these relics of innovation. We're trying to like figure out why they didn't quite make it, and maybe even more interestingly, whether any of them could have some surprising relevance or untapped potential today. I mean, who knows, right? Some forgotten genius could spark a whole new wave of innovation.
Absolutely. What makes this so rich, for everyone listening, is how diverse these inventions are. We're talking ancient stuff, often overlooked marvels from the Industrial Revolution, 20th century ideas that just missed the mark, and even some early digital ventures that, looking back, almost feel like prophecies.
So the mission for this deep dive, if you choose to accept it, has like three parts. First, can we find any patterns in why these seemingly brilliant ideas never really materialized? Second, what are some of the most surprising details from their histories? And third, could any of these forgotten wonders be ripe for like a modern-day comeback? Maybe even spark some of those aha moments you love.
Exactly. And while we journey through this landscape of forgotten ingenuity, it's good to remember that what looks like a failure in innovation isn't always the end of the story. It often offers crucial lessons and can even lay the foundation for future breakthroughs in some really unexpected ways.
Okay, so let's unpack all this. Let's start at the beginning or close to it. Some truly ancient examples. The first one that really grabbed me was the Antikythera mechanism. I mean, when you first hear about it, it feels like something straight out of science fiction.
It really does. Found in a shipwreck off the coast of Greece dating back to the 1st century BC. Over 2,000 years ago, what's truly astonishing is its function.
Right, we're not talking about some basic tool. This was a complex astronomical calculator, an incredibly sophisticated arrangement of gears and dials. It could predict the movements of the sun and the moon, and likely the planets as well. I mean, the level of engineering is mind-blowing for that time. And it shows how technological advancement isn't always a straight line. Sometimes brilliance fades and needs to be rediscovered.
And the sophistication is what's key here. The precision of the gears, the complex astronomical calculations it could perform. It represents a peak of mechanical knowledge that, well, we didn't see again for almost 2,000 years. It really drives home the point that technological progress isn't always this straightforward march forward. Sometimes knowledge is gained, flourishes, and then, for various reasons, is lost or forgotten.
Makes you wonder what other incredible technologies might have existed back then that we just, I don't know, have no clue about today. But let's think about the Antikythera mechanism in a modern context. Any potential revivals come to mind? I was thinking maybe for education, to illustrate mechanical engineering, or even sustainable computing.
That's a really sharp connection you're making. With all the concern about the environmental impact of digital tech, there's this growing interest in analog devices and mechanical systems that don't need electricity or, those rare earth minerals. A modern, maybe simplified Antikythera-inspired device could be a fantastic educational tool, showing celestial mechanics in a tangible, hands-on way. And for certain specialized applications where you need something really robust and independent from electronic power, those mechanical computing principles could see a comeback.
Moving ahead chronologically, but sticking with the ancient world, we have the Baghdad battery. Now, this one feels even more shrouded in mystery, wouldn't you say?
It really is. We're talking about a bunch of clay jars found in Mesopotamia. The most widely accepted theory, although still debated, is that these jars, which had an iron rod and a copper cylinder, could have worked as simple batteries when filled with something acidic, like vinegar or even wine.
Wow. So potentially those ancient civilizations had some understanding of basic electrical principles. That's pretty wild to consider. And just like the Antikythera mechanism, this seems like a piece of knowledge that just wasn't built upon for a very, very long time.
Exactly. If the Baghdad battery really was an early form of electrical storage, it points to a level of scientific understanding we haven't fully appreciated. Why this knowledge faded is a complex question, of course. Maybe practical applications were limited back then, or the theoretical foundation wasn't there to push it further.
But thinking about today, with the huge push for sustainable energy, could the Baghdad battery, with its simple design and common materials, offer some inspiration? Maybe for off-grid power in places with limited resources?
That's a really interesting thought to explore. Obviously, the power output of such a basic battery would be tiny compared to what we use today, but the idea of using readily available materials to make a small electrical current, that's totally relevant. Maybe not powering your phone anytime soon, but it could spark ideas for very basic, localized power sources.
Let's jump ahead a few thousand years now. We land in the Industrial Revolution and come across the Jacquard loom. Maybe not as immediately exciting as like an ancient computer or a battery, but it really changed the world, didn't it?
Absolutely. Joseph Marie Jacquard, early 19th century, this invention revolutionized the textile industry. What's so important about it, particularly for our conversation, is its use of punched cards to control the patterns woven into fabric.
Punched cards. It's amazing to think that these pieces of stiff paper with holes in specific spots were basically an early form of programming, directly controlling this complex machine. There's a direct line from patterns in fabric to the code that runs our computers.
What's interesting here is that the Jacquard loom was a massive commercial success, making textile production way more efficient and allowing for more complex designs. But its importance as a precursor to modern computing that wasn't fully grasped until much later. It shows how an invention can have a huge impact in one area, but its broader implications take time to be appreciated.
Given our current, maker culture where so many people are into hands-on creation and understanding how tech works, could we see a Jacquard loom revival, like as a way to teach programming in a visual, tangible way?
I love that idea. Imagine kits or workshops where people could design patterns using a simple, modern version of the punched card system, and then actually see those designs woven into fabric. It'd be amazing for demystifying programming and connecting the digital and physical worlds.
Sticking with the Industrial Revolution, we have the steam engine. I know it's not exactly a forgotten invention, it's kind of the foundation of the whole era, but it often feels overshadowed by the flashier tech that came later.
I think that's fair. The steam engine, pioneered by people like Newcomen in the early 1700s and then significantly refined by Watt, was the driving force, no pun intended, behind the Industrial Revolution. Reliable, scalable power for factories, trains, ships it reshaped society.
Total game changer. Before that, power was mainly human or animal muscle, or the unbreakable forces of wind and water. The steam engine changed all that. While we've mostly moved on to other power sources, could there be new applications for steam power today, especially with renewable energy?
Surprisingly, yes. The core principles of steam power can fit into modern renewable energy systems. For example, concentrated solar power plants use huge arrays of mirrors to focus sunlight, generate intense heat, and create steam to drive turbines, making electricity. You can also burn biomass organic matter from plants and animals to make steam. These modern applications often involve closed-loop systems where the water is recycled, and when powered by renewables, it's a sustainable way to generate electricity in certain areas.
All right, let's make a big jump forward to the 20th century, a time of amazing technological advances, but also some brilliant ideas that just, didn't quite work out. First up, bubble wrap. I mean, who doesn't love popping those little air-filled pockets? But it wasn't originally meant for packaging, was it?
Not at all. Back in 1957, bubble wrap started as, get this, a new type of wallpaper. Can you picture your walls covered in those bubbles? Not surprisingly, it didn't exactly take off.
No pun intended, I assume. So, failed wallpaper, what was the next attempt?
The inventors then tried to sell it as insulation, for greenhouses and homes. It had some limited success there as a lightweight insulating layer, but it wasn't exactly setting the world on fire.
So how did it go from wall covering and insulation to this ubiquitous packaging material we all know and love?
The big moment came when IBM, the tech giant, started using it to protect their fragile computer components during shipping. They saw how great it was for cushioning delicate electronics, and that's when bubble wrap found its true purpose, going from a flop to an essential part of logistics and packaging.
It's a classic example of an invention finding its perfect use, almost by accident. But with all the concern about plastic waste and sustainability, what's the future for bubble wrap? Could we see a more eco-friendly version?
Absolutely. There's this huge push for biodegradable and recycled packaging. We'll definitely see bubble wrap made from more environmentally friendly materials that break down naturally or are easy to recycle, so you can still get that satisfying pop without the guilt.
Up next, we have Thomas Edison's electric pen. Edison, the name practically screams innovation, but this invention didn't exactly light up the world, did it?
True. Invented back in 1875, it used a small battery-power motor to punch tiny holes in paper as you wrote. The idea was to create a stencil so you could make multiple copies by rubbing ink through the holes.
So basically a really early version of a photocopier. But it never really took off, even though Edison was already super famous. Why didn't it catch on?
Seems like the tech just wasn't quite there yet. It was clunky and awkward to use, didn't give you a natural writing experience, probably didn't offer the ease and efficiency that businesses and people wanted for making copies at the time.
But the tech behind the electric pen didn't just vanish, did it? It actually evolved into something pretty significant and widely used.
It did. Edison's electric pen patent was bought by Albert Blake Dick, who refined and improved it. This led to the mimeograph machine, the first really popular office copier. So, kind of ironic, Edison's failure paved the way for a revolution in how offices handle documents. And even more surprising, the basic idea of the electric pen with its needle action ended up in modern tattoo guns.
Talk about an unexpected evolutionary path, from office memos to body art. Thinking about today, with this renewed interest in analog tools and more craft-focused creation, could a reimagined electric pen find a niche market, maybe for specific types of art or even secure document authentication?
It's definitely possible. Imagine an updated electric pen, super refined, for creating unique art with texture on different surfaces. Or maybe a way to mark documents so they're really hard to forge. With the advances we've made in motors, materials, and digital control, there could be a market for a high-end, specialized electric pen, something for people who appreciate analog tools in our digital world.
Now let's step into the early digital age with the Microsoft Tablet. Surprisingly, this came out a whole decade before the iPad. Feels like a classic case of an idea that was just too early.
For sure. Around the year 2000, Microsoft releases its first tablet. Bill Gates was incredibly optimistic, predicting it would be a huge hit, but as we know, it just didn't connect with most people back then.
So what were the main roadblocks? Why didn't it capture the public's imagination like later tablets?
A few things came together. First, the original Microsoft tablet was designed to be a full PC replacement, running the same complex operating system as desktops. Not a simpler, more portable device for, watching videos and casual stuff, which is what the iPad nailed when it came out. Second, the price was high, like $2,000, which was way too much for most people. And as Bill Gates himself admitted later, the design wasn't sleek or attractive enough. He said, and I quote, "The tablets we had done before weren't as thin, they weren't as attractive."
So a combination of a clunky design, a really high price, and maybe a misunderstanding of what people wanted in a tablet. But it's interesting to see how Microsoft's vision of a tablet as a work tool is becoming a reality today.
Exactly. With better processors, software, and accessories like keyboards and styluses, tablets are increasingly used for serious work and professional stuff. Microsoft's own Surface line is a good example, a powerful, versatile tablet that can also be a laptop. It shows how an idea can come back around and succeed when the tech and the market are ready.
Then we have the story of the Dyson vacuum cleaner. Obviously not a forgotten invention at all. It's super successful. But getting there involved a crazy number of failures, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. James Dyson, the inventor, went through a mind-boggling number of prototypes, 5,127 to be exact, before perfecting his bagless cyclone technology. That's some serious dedication and persistence.
He was also rejected by every major vacuum manufacturer before finally finding success in the UK in the mid-90s. It shows the importance of not giving up on a truly innovative idea, even when people are skeptical, especially the big players in the industry. It's not just persistence, it's about challenging how things are usually done.
It highlights some crucial things about successful innovation. First, the need for rigorous testing, constant tweaking, and refining the core idea. Second, you got to be persistent. Keep going even when things go wrong or people say no. And third, the market is often unpredictable, so a new idea might just need time for people to understand and accept it. Dyson's success didn't happen overnight, but believing in his tech and striving for perfection paid off big time.
Let's move on to some more recent misses, those digital dead ends. I'm talking about Google Glass. Remember all the hype and the backlash?
Oh, yeah. Google Glass was a big attempt by a big tech company to bring wearable computing to the masses in the form of augmented reality glasses. Lots of buzz and speculation about the future of personal tech.
But that buzz turned sour pretty quickly. We even had the term glass holes. What went wrong with the experiment, in your view?
Several things, probably. Privacy was a big one. The camera, right there on the glasses, made people worry about constant surveillance and being recorded secretly. The high price made it seem like a gadget for the elite, adding to a sense of, social division. And maybe most importantly, it was just awkward to interact with people wearing Google Glass. So even though the tech was cool, the social and cultural reception was mostly negative.
But augmented reality glasses haven't completely vanished. Right? The core idea seems to still be in development, with a lot of potential.
Right. The idea of AR glasses overlaying digital info and experiences onto the real world is still really appealing. Lots of companies are working on it, focusing on better design, stronger privacy features, and finding more practical uses for everyday people and for work in industry. So while the original Google Glass might be considered a consumer failure, it paved a way for the future of wearable AR.
Next, we have the Audio-Technica Soundburger. For those who remember, it's a blast from the past from the quirky 80s.
Definitely. The Soundburger was Audio-Technica's attempt to make a truly portable vinyl record player back in the 80s. The design was unique and kind of fun, but also a bit impractical.
Impractical in that you still needed a stable surface to play a record without it skipping, which kind of defeated the whole portable thing compared to cassettes or CDs, which were getting popular then.
Yeah, the idea was cool and visually interesting, but the limitations of playing vinyl on the go made it hard to sell. It just couldn't match the convenience of other portable music formats.
But with vinyl making a huge comeback, do you think the Soundburger, or maybe a modern version of it, could find an audience among vinyl lovers today?
It's an interesting thought. The article you sent even joked about an Urban Outfitters-funded comeback because of the retro aesthetic and the novelty factor, which could appeal to some vinyl fans, especially younger people discovering the format. Maybe a redesigned version with better stabilization, longer battery life, and a more durable build could find a surprising amount of popularity.
Our last specifically named invention from the main set of sources is Franklin's harmonica. This one is interesting because it was actually pretty popular before fading away.
Right. Benjamin Franklin's glass harmonica was a unique musical instrument made of rotating glass bowls of different sizes. You'd create sound by touching the spinning bowls with wet fingers. It was popular in the late 1700s and early 1800s, with composers writing music for it.
So why did it disappear if it was successful and sounded so cool?
It got associated with some unfounded health concerns, which is unfortunate. People believed without any evidence that playing it could cause nervous disorders, get you depressed, or even lead to other physical problems. These negative perceptions, plus the sound being a bit strange for some, led to its decline.
But with all the interest in unusual instruments and historical music today, could the harmonica come back?
Absolutely. With our current knowledge of acoustics and materials, we could easily address any real health concerns. A modern harmonica, maybe made with different types of glass or other materials, could offer musicians a unique sound. The interest in historical music and experimental sounds could create a space for it to reemerge.
Now, you also gave me some great insights from other sources about forgotten inventions from the last 200 years or so. Let's dive into a few, starting with the pneumatic post. I remember reading about these underground mail systems.
The pneumatic post was an amazing system, especially in cities like London and Paris in the 1800s. Compressed air shot capsules full of mail through underground tubes, and it was fast, reaching speeds of 30 miles per hour.
Faster than traffic in a lot of cities today. So why did this seemingly efficient system disappear?
Mostly because it was expensive to build and maintain those underground tubes. Also, the telegraph and later the telephone, those faster electronic communications, made rapid physical mail delivery less important.
But with the boom in online shopping and the need for fast delivery in cities, could the pneumatic post concept be useful today? Maybe for smaller packages?
It's definitely a possibility. New materials would make the tubes lighter and stronger, and with automation for handling the packages, a modern pneumatic post could be quite efficient and environmentally friendly, especially in crowded city centers.
Next, we have the Aerocar, the classic dream of a flying car.
Moulton Taylor's Aerocar from the 1940s was a marvel of engineering, folding wings for smooth transitions between driving and flying.
Sounds incredible. What grounded this ambitious invention?
Safety was a big issue. A vehicle that needs to be safe on the road and in the air faces a lot of challenges and compromises. It was also really expensive to build, putting it out of reach for most people. And the steady improvement and affordability of regular cars and planes probably played a role too.
But with all the excitement around electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles, eVTOLs, could the Aerocar idea be viable now? Maybe for personal air travel in less populated areas?
Totally. Electric propulsion, lightweight materials, and maybe even autonomous flight tech could make a roadable aircraft more feasible, safer, and more affordable. It might not be for daily commutes in big cities, but for specific uses or personal travel in less crowded areas, the flying car dream might be getting closer.
Then there's Starlite, this super-secret material that could supposedly resist incredible heat.
Starlite, developed by Maurice Ward in the 70s and 80s, was a fascinating and mysterious substance. He said it could handle incredibly high temperatures, even a blowtorch, without transferring much heat to the surface underneath.
The demonstrations were impressive, like coating an egg with Starlite and then blasting it with heat, but the egg wouldn't cook. So why isn't Starlite used everywhere if it was so revolutionary?
Maurice Ward kept the formula and the manufacturing process a complete secret, and sadly, he died in 2011 without ever revealing it. This lack of transparency made some scientists skeptical, and the potential of the material was essentially lost with him.
It's really a shame given the potential for things like aerospace, fireproofing, and high-temperature insulation. Could its secrets be rediscovered, or could we create a similar material with modern science?
Some have tried to reverse engineer or replicate Starlight based on the little information available, but no luck so far. If a material with that kind of heat resistance could be developed with modern materials science and nanotech, it would be a game changer for many industries.
We also have muslin cloth, a fine cotton fabric with a very interesting history.
Muslin, especially the incredibly fine types from ancient India and Bangladesh, was a prized textile traded globally. Known for its amazing texture, it was almost see-through and had intricate weaves. It was a major commodity for centuries because of its comfort and elegance.
So what happened to this once celebrated fabric?
Well, a few things contributed to its decline. Deliberate efforts to suppress its production during British colonial rule to help British textile industries, plus the gradual loss of those specialized skills for growing the cotton and weaving the fabric, led to a drop in quality and availability.
But I understand there's a movement to bring back this lost art and the production of real muslin.
Yes, there are artisans and researchers trying to rediscover the original cotton varieties and revive the traditional weaving techniques. With the growing interest in sustainable, ethical, and historically significant textiles, high-quality muslin could definitely find a place in the modern fashion world.
The one-wheel motorcycle sounds like something out of a futuristic movie.
It does, doesn't it? It's also called a mono-wheel vehicle. The idea popped up in the early 1900s with one Italian example in 1931. The rider would sit inside or next to a single giant wheel. They claimed it could reach high speeds, but staying balanced was a huge problem.
I can only imagine how hard it would be to balance on one wheel, especially going fast.
Exactly. Balancing control on a single wheel on different surfaces at high speeds was a major engineering hurdle back then, and safety was a huge concern, of course.
But what about today, with things like gyroscopic stabilization and powerful electric motors? Could a one-wheel vehicle work now? Maybe for short trips in cities or even just for fun?
It's definitely possible. We already see electric scooters and self-balancing skateboards getting popular. With good stabilization and electric power, a safe one-wheel motorcycle could be appealing. People who want a unique, compact, maybe even futuristic way to get around, or just for recreation.
The amphibious bike cyclomer from 1932 Paris sounds like a really ambitious, if maybe impractical, idea.
It was ingenious. For sure, a bike designed for both land and water. It had a buoyant frame and could even carry some extra weight.
Cool concept, but I imagine it wasn't very practical for everyday use.
It was probably too complex and expensive compared to a regular bike. Heavier and harder to use on land and less efficient in the water than a boat or kayak.
But with today's lightweight materials and electric motors, could a better amphibious bike appeal to, say, adventure enthusiasts?
I think so. A lightweight, durable amphibious bike, maybe with an electric motor for the water, would be great for exploring coasts, lakes, and rivers. It could tap into the growing market for outdoor adventure gear and appeal to people who want to explore both land and water.
We also have the almost mythical Greek fire, the Byzantine Empire's super effective weapon that could even burn on water. And the fact that the formula was a secret just makes it even more intriguing.
Right. Greek fire gave the Byzantines a huge military advantage for centuries, especially in naval battles. Sadly, because its exact chemical makeup was a closely guarded secret, the formula has been lost to time. To recreate something like that today, we'd need major advances in materials, science, and chemical analysis.
Flexible glass, supposedly from the Roman era. Glass you could hammer back into shape. It almost sounds too crazy to be true.
The stories about Vitrium flexile, or flexible glass, are definitely intriguing, and they come from various sources. If it really existed and had those properties, it would have been revolutionary. The reason it was lost, supposedly because people worried it would devalue precious metals and therefore suppressed its production, shows how tech innovation and economics are linked. Recreating something like that today would require big breakthroughs in glass science and materials engineering.
The self-cooling cup from the late 1800s was an early attempt to solve a very relatable problem, keeping our drinks at the perfect temperature.
These early self-cooling cups had a double wall with a chemical reaction inside to absorb heat. A clever idea, but concerns about the chemicals and the cost of making them probably held them back. Today, with safer materials and maybe even nanotech, a good self-cooling cup could be a huge hit.
A glow-in-the-dark newspaper, early 1900s. Imagine reading the news in the dark.
The idea was to use ink that would glow in the dark so you wouldn't need a lamp. However, the ink left a residue, and it was too expensive to produce, so it never became popular. Maybe with safer and better luminescent materials, a glow-in-the-dark newspaper could be a cool novelty today.
Early touchscreen interfaces, going all the way back to the 1920s. They came before the touchscreens we use now.
Those early ones used pressure-sensitive panels. The idea of touching the screen to interact with it was there, but the technology wasn't as precise as our modern capacitive touchscreens, and it was way more expensive. Still, refined versions of pressure-sensitive tech could be useful in industrial settings where you need a simple, rugged interface.
Edison's talking doll from the 1890s. An early attempt at interactive toys, although it sounds a bit creepy.
They put a tiny photograph cylinder inside these dolls to play recordings, but the sound quality was bad. And the dolls themselves were kind of eerie looking, so they weren't very successful. Modern interactive toys with digital voices and cuter designs are much better.
And last, Harry Grindle Matthews' Death Ray from the 1920s, a supposed superweapon that caused quite a stir.
Matthews claimed his invention could stop engines, blow up explosives, and even hurt people from afar using some kind of directed electromagnetic energy. Despite his demonstrations, scientists then and now think his claims were mostly bogus. But the idea of directed energy weapons is still being researched today, with strict ethical and safety rules, of course.
So looking back at all these forgotten inventions, are there any common reasons why they didn't succeed? It wasn't always just about how good the invention was, right?
Right. Timing was often crucial. Some inventions, like the early Microsoft Tablet, were just too early. The technology or the market wasn't ready. Sometimes inventors didn't understand what the market wanted, like with early bubble wrap and Edison's electric pen. Social and cultural factors mattered too. Remember the Google Glass backlash? And sometimes there was too much hype, setting unrealistic expectations, like with the Segway.
But it's not all doom and gloom. A lot of these seemingly failed ideas have potential for a comeback. We talked about how the Antikythera mechanism could inspire new ways of computing, the potential of steam power for sustainable energy, and how the idea behind Google Glass is still alive in AR development.
Exactly. We could see a return of analog experiences, like a better sound burger for vinyl fans, a modern electric pen for art and security, even the pneumatic post and one-wheel motorcycles for urban logistics and transportation. Advances in materials could make things like Starlite and flexible glass a reality, and we could even rediscover lost arts like making muslin cloth. And who knows, maybe there's a market for new and improved self-cooling cups and glow-in-the-dark newspapers.
It's amazing to think that so much of what we have today has roots in these often forgotten inventions from the past. Really makes you wonder how much human ingenuity is hidden away in history, waiting for the right time, a fresh perspective, or some new technology to bring it back.
And that brings us to a question for you, the listener. Which of these inventions particularly grabbed your attention? What sparked your curiosity? What other amazing ideas could be out there waiting to be rediscovered and given a new life?
If this deep dive into forgotten inventions got you thinking, I encourage you to do some more exploring on your own. There are museums dedicated to the history of technological failures. The Museum of Failure is a great one, and you can find tons of historical patents and scientific documents online.
Learning about the history of innovation, the successes, the missteps, and the forgotten paths is incredibly valuable for inspiring creativity and progress in the future. By studying the lessons from the past, we can better tackle the challenges of the present and unlock the potential of ideas that might have just been ahead of their time.